Lacrosse community, my name's Ryan Berns. I'm the founder of the Lacrosse Leadership Institute. It's our mission to empower all those that love lacrosse, to recognize the skills that you gain from the sport and use them as a foundation to ultimately live the life of your dreams. Today, I'm so excited and grateful for our guest, Taylor Cummings. She could possibly be the biggest deal in lacrosse that anyone knows at this point. She's won many national championships with Maryland, Team USA All-Star. She's been an SB nomination as a Female Athlete of the Year. Taylor, we're so blessed to have you here. Thank you. And we'd love for you to share with our community how you got involved in lacrosse and where your journey's taking you to today.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here with you guys. My lacrosse journey started when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I moved to Maryland, which is very much a hotbed of lacrosse, from Richmond, which I'd never seen lacrosse in any of the circles I'd been in as a young kid. So to come to Maryland, I felt like I was hit the influx of everything lacrosse. It's really the state sport here. And so from an early age, you have so many kids running around with sticks in the backyard. And as a newcomer, trying to make friends and, figure out what I like to do as well as far as athletics go. Lacrosse seemed like an easy fit and an easy way to do both, to explore new things and to get outside and also meet people. And so I picked that up when I was about 7, I believe. I picked up soccer and basketball first, eventually lacrosse, and have been playing ever since. I went through the normal, rec to travel to club circuit pretty much for all 3 of those sports. Eventually playing just lacrosse outside of high school when I got to high school. So I was still able to play multiple sports for my high school team, but outside of my one club sport was lacrosse once I hit high school. And then went to the University of Maryland, graduated from there in 2016. That was the best 4 years of my life, just from a lacrosse standpoint, but also just from a people standpoint, an experience standpoint, a growth standpoint. It was really just a place that, will always be home to me and be more than just lacrosse for me. And since graduating, I've started my own company where I do a lot of camps and clinics for girls, just spreading the game and going to non-hotbed areas to continue to, grow the game and expose players to high-level coaching and kind of what their dreams can be like in the future. I play for Team USA. I've played in a couple of the different professional leagues now with Athletes Unlimited. And coaching at my alma mater at McDonogh school where I went to high school. So I have my hands, I still play, I coach, I teach, I've been able to see the game from a lot of different viewpoints. And as I've grown up and it's just been a great journey and something that, I've used lacrosse to learn as the vehicle to learn a lot of lessons. And I can't say enough good things about my experiences within this sport.
I think that's such a big thing. And Chaz Woodson said something similar about using lacrosse as that vehicle to ultimately learn a lot of life lessons. And I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. Can you share some of the biggest life lessons that you've taken from the sport?
Yeah, I mean, I could go on for days.
Please do.
I think, obviously when you're in a team sport, it's a little bit different than an individual sport. And I think what always drew me to team sports, I started out in ice skating, and gymnastics, which were both very individual, and I wasn't very good at either. So it was like a natural thing to try other sports. But I think one of the things that kind of got me stuck into soccer, basketball, and lacrosse is that it's a team sport. So you're working with other people towards a collective goal. You get to go to practice every day and get better together. And all of the parts need to come together to make a team successful. And I think that's something that even at a young age, I really liked the aspect of. So as far as, teamwork, communication, working with players you love, working with players that aren't your best friends, it's very much, there's always going to be people you don't necessarily love on your team. How do you work with them and be able to kind of put aside differences for a common goal, which I think is very much a real world situation. communicating with coaches, communicating about playing time, about being late to practice. It's all these little things that, when you get to an adulthood, that now come naturally and now are, things that you've done for years. I think one of the biggest things I learned early on playing so many different sports at once is that I was going to have to make sacrifices to play not only on the teams, but to play at the levels I wanted to compete at. And I was on really high level soccer, and I went to AAU basketball. I was playing high level travel soccer. I was on one of the top ranked club teams in the country in my age group. So I wanted to be at this top level, playing against the best, competing to be the best that I could be. And it required sacrifices. I missed a lot of school dances. I missed time with my family. I had to do homework in the car, and all of these little things I was willing to do because I loved to play and I loved to compete and I loved to be out there with my friends. But it kind of taught me the value of like hard work, and that, what you're sacrificing will pay off and eventually. And that and then on the flip side, like if it doesn't feel good to sacrifice these things, if you want to do other things, then you should go pursue those other options as well. So I think that's something that I learned really on, is that if you want to get especially to these elite levels of, even now at the US level, at the pro level, we're sacrificing, time with our families, we're sacrificing jobs, we're sacrificing, in college on the US team, I would miss fall ball weekends to go be with US. Like there's all these, you'd miss football weekends to go be with US. There's all these little things that really add up. But if you want to be at the highest level, to compete on a team with other people who are just as dedicated, you have to be willing to make those sacrifices. And I think that just goes to work and to life beyond. You make sacrifices for your family, for your friends, for your like it just really taught me not only that you have to make them, but that, those sacrifices are worth it too.
Going off of the sacrifices are worth it, can you share some of your pinnacle moments with lacrosse and what really stands out for you?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind as far as like a pinnacle moment for lacrosse specifically was when I made my first club team for lacrosse. I was in 6th grade. At that point, girls had been playing a lot longer than me at a lot higher levels than me. And that was the first time that I made like the top team on pure athleticism. And I think that was the first time ever that a coach really took the time to teach me like the intricacies of the game to develop my lacrosse IQ, because he saw like a very good athlete and he saw potential in me, and he knew how much work I would need to get to the levels that I wanted to play at. He knew me as a competitor, he knew me as an athlete, but that was the first time that I had somebody really work on that mental side of the game, work on that emotional side of the game, that, connecting the pieces of my lacrosse and soccer and basketball into one. And for me, that was game changing, because I went from being pretty average to starting to get good and starting to continue to develop, and all at the same time having a lot of fun doing it. So he was able to really, teach me while also giving me an environment to like still have fun and not be, he knew the balance of like when to push me, when to let me have a little freedom. He understood like I'm a player who likes to take risks, so I'm going to mess up 10 times, but I'll win it back, 11. And that's something for me as a kid. It was the first time like I felt like I had a coach who got me and who understood exactly what made me tick and what made me want to work hard and what got me going. And so for me, that was huge for me, because it finally kind of, all of these, my multiple sports, my work ethic in school, it all kind of combined, and he saw that. And from there, I never looked back. From there, lacrosse was my top sport, and it was something that, I wanted to play in college, and started to change my dreams from I want to be on the women's national soccer team to, I want to go win a national championship in lacrosse. I want to go see how far I can do there. So I think that was a pivotal moment for me, that as I look back at now as a coach, I really want to provide that environment for the kids I work with and make them feel as like seen and understood as Scott Robinson made me feel even as a sixth grader.
It's fascinating that you can have an experience or a season with a coach and he just totally changes the trajectory of the sport, or she. And ultimately, I think that's the real power of leadership, is you can unlock the full capacity of those that you're leading or part of a team. And it's really cool that Scott was able to do that for you. And it seems like now you're passing the buck on and doing the same thing for girls that are trying to be successful. Can you
Yeah,
share a little bit more, Taylor? What does leadership mean to you?
when I think of like the best players I've played with, the best coaches I've played for, I think the first thing that stands out to me is like they don't ask anything of the people that they're around that they wouldn't do themselves or more. And so for me, whether it's run tests, whether it's picking up balls after practice, whether it's, reaching out to a freshman to make sure they're okay. There's so many ways you can be a leader that aren't, yelling at your teammates in those big games. And so for me, something that I learned, I played pretty competitively. I went to the best high school, one of the best high schools for girls lacrosse in high school. I went to one of the best colleges for women's lacrosse in college. I played for US. Like I've played with and for some of really elite level people. And I always take note of the people who go the extra mile, who don't necessarily, brag about it or, make anything of it, but they're the ones cleaning up the bench after practice or, leading huddles, but then also like able to kind of connect with teammates off field. So for me, I think that big thing is like leading. Not everyone leads by one way. So not everyone has to be the vocal leader, or has to lead by example, or has to be the leader on the field that's scoring, putting the team on their back. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can do that. But the big thing for me with any of the leaders I watch is they're not asking more of their teammates than they're willing to commit themselves. And I think that's a big one for me that always sticks out, because I know, like, if you ask me to do something, you're going to go do it and then going to go do it again tenfold. And that's where I think you build this level of trust. You build a level of, you start to like make the culture more elite and more welcoming when you have not just one person doing that, but everyone's doing that. So I think for me, I've never been on a team with just one leader. I think, or just one style of leader. I think the best teams and the best groups of people, even like best groups of captains, all bring something different to the table, and can play off each other. So where, for instance, my senior year, we had 4 captains. It was myself and Alice Mercer as seniors, and we had Zoe Stukenberg and Nadine Hadnaghi as juniors. And Alice and I were really intense, and we were the ones who, on field were saying things and like giving instructions. And then we had Zoe and Nadine, who were sort of a little bit more of the softer voices, who would come in and either clean up after us sometimes or make things a little more light. And so we got to play off of each other that way. And it created a really good harmony and a really good balance. And I think being a leader also knows that you have other people have strengths that you don't have, and that's not a weakness, but rather using that and relying upon that to make up for where maybe you fall short, and knowing where you have room to grow. Because I don't think anyone stops growing in any area.
Not at all. I think we always need to be lifelong learners. And you said something else in terms of we all have a certain weakness as well, and we need others to balance us out. And that's a big reason why I think diversity is such a big part on the field or in the organization. Is we all have different backgrounds, we all have different perspectives, and we understand emotional intelligence in different ways. So if we're able to connect with our teammates, and if we can't connect, we have someone else that has those same high standards that we do as a leader, but they're able to demonstrate those or connect in a different way. It brings the team up. And ultimately they say we're as strong as the weakest link. And I don't know if you wanted to add something in on this or not. It seemed like you maybe wanted to talk.
No, I think that's perfect. I think every I think the best teams I've been a part of, every role on that team has been made important and has been told, but also shown how important you are. So whether you're a leader on the bench and you are the hype woman on the bench and that's your job and you don't step foot on there, or you're injured that year and you're the person who's keeping, you know, track of subs or stats or whatever that is, or you're playing 60 minutes, like whatever your role is, I think you can lead in different areas, and all of those roles coming together are what make teams successful. You know, at my time at Maryland, we didn't sub a ton. We didn't get a ton of people on the field in 80% of the games we played, but we went to the national championship 4 years in a row because everyone bought into their role and everyone knew the sacrifices you had to make. We have all Americans who are sitting the bench, but they want to be a part of a team that is winning and that is fun and a family and working together towards a common goal. So you're willing to sacrifice that. And I always thought that was so like inspiring to look over and see so many people who want to be out there so bad and they're willing to not be because they know how important it is to be a part of something like bigger than yourself.
And that's a big thing, being able to be a part of something bigger than yourself. So it can sometimes be difficult from the coaching side, though, or leadership side, to create that culture. I'd love to hear, Taylor, how you found that as a captain, you were able to create that culture, but now as a coach, how you go and you teach these young girls, and especially if you're helping non-hotbed lacrosse areas, how you go in and you bring that elite level of lacrosse as well and culture.
I mean, I learned from the best. I learned, you know, from my club coach. You know, if I think about my two favorite teams I've ever been a part of, it was my M&D team and club that we were together for almost 7 years. And then my coaches at Maryland and my Maryland experience. And both of those teams they were like the top teams in the country, you know, at club as well as in college. And I think the culture that both of those coaches were able to get almost more difficult in club because you're getting recruited, which is always a difficult beast to kind of combine with and make it team oriented when everyone's individually trying to get recruited. But that, you know, it's a family, that every role matters, that you come to practice because you want to make the people around you better. You don't want to let the people around you down. You know, my coach always said, you win in the locker room, you win on the field at Maryland. That's what Kathy always said. And something that was so true, because those little moments away from practice, you know, scootering to practice, bus rides to games, team dinners, you know, Sunday morning treatment, all of those things that you're not physically on the field together, but you're in the locker room or you're with your team. That's where you create trust, and that's where you can create relationships. You're not going to play your best on the field if you don't trust the people around you and you don't trust them to have your back. And so that's the really like the core of the Maryland and the M&D team that I was on. That culture is, you have to love the people around you and you have to be willing to sacrifice for them to be able to go compete and to win and to accomplish your goals. And so, I mean, I look back at my Maryland experience, and we used to have alums from 5-10 years ago coming to our national championships. I had no idea who they were, but they knew exactly who I was, and they watched and they cheered. And that's what keeps bringing people back to Maryland, is this culture that Kathy, Kenneth, and Caitlin have created, where they loved their experience so much and they loved the people they were with. And then like lacrosse was like the side point. Like you won and we have rings and we won, but like you left with something bigger than a trophy. And I think that's where you create a good culture that keeps the current players there, keeps the past players coming back, but gets those future kids in there because they want to be a part of something like that.
It's funny how that an elite organization that's run fluidly and has a mission and a vision that people can get behind is a perpetual machine. It just keeps going and going and going. And there's a sustainability aspect of that because it's just a fun environment to be of. And I think that's when we can give our all. And you said a little bit earlier that the best leaders or the best players are the ones who they gave a little bit more than what they were asked for. And I think that's an example of having the best locker room as well. It's not necessarily in the job description, but it's such a necessity if we're going to be connected and have a bond between teammates. I'd love to hear, Taylor, what should current youth players be doing if they want to be playing at the elite levels moving forward?
I mean, I think for our younger kids, it takes obviously hitting the wall, playing a lot of lacrosse, going to the tournaments, whatnot. But I think what's really setting kids apart is one, their lacrosse IQ. So watching film, understanding the game, being perpetual students of the game. I still watch film and I still learn, and I watch UNC play and I'm like, oh, I'm going to try that in practice today with my McDonogh kids to see if I can take something that I saw and apply it to my McDonogh team. So I think being a perpetual learner and student of the game is huge. And then I think just making sure, just having check-ins and making sure like you're passionate and your passion is sustaining, because it is hard, and you do, you get to college and it's a job and you're a full-time student, and sometimes it feels like a lot of work. And for me, that work was always worth it because I got to go play with my best friends and compete and play at the highest levels. And for some, that's not enough. And for some, it's not their passion and it's not what they want to do. And that's okay. So I think for especially our younger kids who are being forced so early to specialize and to only play lacrosse from 5th grade on, I encourage that to not happen because you're going to get burnt out. But I think doing those check-ins, are you going to practice because you have to or because you want to? Are you going to your tournament because you have to and mom and dad are making you, or because you actually want to be there? And, for me, especially in high school, like I probably, thinking back, there were probably days where I didn't want to go to practice, but I think an overriding feeling and memory I have is just always wanting to go to practice because I got to hang out with my best friends. And it was like my favorite 2 hours of the day where I got to just go, mess around with people that I hadn't seen, especially in club, because not all they didn't all go to my school. So it could be people I hadn't seen for a few days or a few weeks that I get to go to practice with. And like that was the best time of, that was the best day of the week. And then when we had tournaments, I was so excited to go spend like 3 days with my teammates and go play some lacrosse, but like catch some grapes on the sidelines and like mess around. And so for me, I think that's what's really key is you have to be passionate about and you have to still have fun and love what you do, or else you can't compete at this high level because you're not going to want to train. You're not going to want to, 97% of my training is probably done by myself. I was just in the gym this morning with my trainer at 5:30 in the morning by myself. I do it twice a week. And we really only have such limited time together as a US team or in the pros that you have to be willing to make those sacrifices in order to play. And if you're not passionate about it, it's not going to work because it's going to show in your play. It's going to show in your life.
Well, Taylor, we know that you're full of passion, and thank you so much for being a part of this conversation today. I know we're running out of time right now. Is there any last thoughts you have in terms of lacrosse, leadership, or anything else that's become present to you?
I mean, I think just, reiterating what I just said, just make sure you're having fun with it. The best part of my day in high school and college, and now the best part of my years is going to go see my teammates and play. So if you have that passion and that's what gets you excited, then all the little stuff, the X's and O's, the stick work, everything that's able to change and to be improved, but you can't really change your passion. So if you feel like this is your place and this is where you want to do every day, go for it.
Well, Taylor, thank you so much for that perspective in this conversation. We appreciate you a ton. We're going to be cheering you on moving forward.
Thank you. Bye, guys.